Have you ever seen someone lose everything because of one decision made by a powerful person? What if the person being pushed out was the very one holding a secret that could change everything? On a cold Monday morning, a wealthy CEO stood outside a small garage and pointed at the owner. Her voice was sharp, her decision final. Shut it down. What she didn't know was that behind those old metal doors sat an invention that could destroy the empire she had spent her entire life building. Before we begin, if you enjoy heartwarming stories about kindness, second chances, and unexpected miracles, please like this video, subscribe to Heart Kindness Tales, and share your thoughts in the comments. Your support helps us bring more inspiring stories to life. The garage stood on the edge of a small town in Ohio. It wasn't much to look at. The paint was peeling. The sign above the entrance was faded from years of sun and rain. But inside worked Elijah Carter, a widowed father of two. Every morning before sunrise, Elijah packed lunches for his children, drove them to school, and then spent 12 hours fixing cars for people who could barely afford repairs. Many customers offered to pay later. Elijah almost always agreed. Some never paid him back. Yet he never complained. People are fighting battles we can't see, he often told his children. One rainy afternoon, an elderly woman brought in her broken truck. The repair cost more than she could afford. Tears filled her eyes. "I need this truck to get to my doctor appointments," she whispered. Elijah spent 6 hours fixing it. When she asked how much she owed, he smiled. "Nothing. Just promise me you'll get better." The woman cried before driving away. Acts like that happened all the time. What Elijah never told anyone was that after closing the shop every night, he worked on something else. Hidden behind a curtain at the back of the garage was a revolutionary engine. For 8 years he had been designing it. It was cleaner, more powerful, far cheaper to produce. And unlike traditional engines, it could reduce fuel consumption dramatically. Elijah dreamed of helping ordinary families save money. He never cared about becoming rich. Meanwhile, hundreds of miles away in New York City, Victoria Langford sat in a glass office overlooking Manhattan. She was the CEO of Langford Motors, one of the largest automobile companies in America. Her company dominated the market. Profits mattered more than people. Efficiency mattered more than kindness. When executives discovered Elijah's garage occupied land needed for a massive corporate expansion project, Victoria approved the acquisition immediately. Most property owners accepted the company's offers. Elijah refused. "This garage is my life," he said. A week later, lawyers arrived. Then inspectors. Then more pressure. Finally, Victoria came herself. Standing outside the garage, she held legal documents in her hand. "You have 30 days, she told him. Elijah's auto will be closed." His children watched from the doorway. Elijah simply nodded. "I understand." Victoria expected anger. She expected threats. Instead, Elijah surprised her. "Would you like some coffee?" he asked. She stared at him. "What? You look exhausted." For a moment she didn't know what to say. No one had asked how she was doing in years. She declined and walked away. But something about that interaction stayed with her. Days passed. The closure process continued. Then one evening, Victoria's car broke down during a storm. Her phone battery died. Rain poured across the empty highway. The nearest building happened to be Elijah's garage. The lights were still on. Without hesitation, Elijah welcomed her inside. "You?" Victoria asked. He smiled. "Looks like you need help." For the next 2 hours, Elijah repaired her vehicle while she sat quietly watching. She noticed family photos on the wall. She noticed handwritten thank you cards from customers. She noticed people dropping by just to say hello. This wasn't just a business. It was a community. When the repair was finished, she reached for her wallet. Elijah shook his head. No charge. Why? Because you needed help. Victoria was speechless. She was trying to take away everything this man had built. Yet he treated her with kindness. That night she couldn't sleep. For the first time in years, she questioned her choices. A week later, something unexpected happened. One of Langford Motors' engineers leaked internal documents. The company's latest engine design had serious flaws. Production delays threatened billions in losses. Investors panicked. Stock prices dropped. Executives demanded solutions. Victoria felt her empire beginning to crack. Then she remembered something she had seen inside Elijah's garage. The covered machine in the back room. The strange engine he seemed so protective of. Curious, she returned. This time she came alone. Elijah, she said softly, what were you working on? He hesitated before pulling away the cover. Victoria stared in disbelief. The design was brilliant. Even better, independent testing reports confirmed its performance. The technology could change the entire industry. It was years ahead of anything Langford Motors had developed. Her heart sank. If a competitor acquired it first, her company could collapse. The engine truly had the power to destroy her empire. But Elijah wasn't interested in revenge. He wasn't interested in watching her fail. Instead, he offered her a chair. For hours they talked. About business. About family. About mistakes. About second chances. Finally Victoria asked the question she had been avoiding. After everything I've done, why are you helping me? Elijah looked at her for a moment. Then he smiled. Because kindness isn't something you give only to good people. It's something you choose because it's who you are. Those words hit harder than any business loss ever could. Victoria realized she had spent years building a company but neglecting her humanity. The next morning she shocked her board of directors. The closure order was cancelled. The garage would remain open. But that wasn't all. She offered Elijah a partnership. Not ownership of his invention. A partnership. Equal respect. Equal voice. Equal reward. Months later, Langford Motors launched the new engine with Elijah leading the innovation team. The technology transformed the industry. Families saved money. Emissions dropped. Thousands of jobs were created. The company recovered stronger than ever. But Victoria considered something else her greatest success. She learned how to treat people. She began visiting local communities. She created employee assistance programs. She invested in small businesses instead of crushing them. And every year, she returned to Elijah's garage. Not as a CEO. As a friend. The old sign still hung above the entrance. The coffee was still free. And kindness still lived inside those walls. Sometimes the strongest person in the room isn't the richest or the most powerful. Sometimes it's the person who chooses kindness when they have every reason not to. One act of compassion can change a heart. One generous choice can change a life. And sometimes, kindness can even save an empire from destroying itself. So wherever you are today, remember this: treat people with kindness, even when it's difficult. You never know whose future you may change, or how much your own life might change in return. And that is a lesson worth carrying with us every single day. The success of the new engine changed Elijah Carter's life forever. News stations across America shared his story. People called him a genius. Business magazines wanted interviews. Investors offered millions of dollars. But every evening, after leaving the headquarters of Langford Motors, Elijah still stopped by his old garage. To him, it was never about fame. It was about people. One afternoon, while helping a customer replace a flat tire, Elijah noticed a teenage boy standing across the street. The boy looked nervous. His clothes were worn, and his backpack was falling apart. For nearly an hour, he stood there without moving. Finally, Elijah walked over. "Can I help you?" The boy lowered his eyes. "My name is Mason," he said quietly. "My mom said you might have work." Elijah smiled. "There's always work if someone is willing to learn." Mason started the next day. At first, he barely spoke. He swept floors, organized tools, and cleaned work areas. Over time, Elijah learned the truth. Mason's father had abandoned the family years earlier. His mother worked 2 jobs. Some nights they barely had enough food. The teenager had almost dropped out of school. Many people had ignored him. Others had judged him. Elijah did neither. Instead, he taught him everything he knew. How to repair engines. How to solve problems. How to believe in himself. Months passed. The shy teenager slowly transformed into a confident young man. One evening, after closing the garage, Mason asked a question. "Why do you spend so much time helping people?" Elijah looked around the shop. The answer came easily. "Because someone once helped me when I had nothing." He told Mason about the difficult years after his wife passed away. The bills. The loneliness. The fear of raising 2 children alone. "There were days I thought I would lose everything," Elijah admitted. "But strangers showed me kindness. A neighbor watched my kids when I couldn't afford childcare. Customers brought meals when money was tight. They carried me through my darkest days." He smiled. "Now it's my turn to carry someone else." Mason never forgot those words. Meanwhile, Victoria Langford continued changing her company. Employees noticed it first. The cold executive who once cared only about profits had become a different person. She learned workers' names. She visited factory floors. She listened instead of commanding. One day, during a company meeting, an executive proposed closing a small manufacturing plant to save money. Years earlier, Victoria would have approved it immediately. This time she asked a different question. How many families depend on those jobs? The room fell silent. Nobody had considered that. After reviewing the numbers, Victoria found another solution. The plant remained open. Hundreds of families kept their livelihoods. For the first time, employees felt valued. And surprisingly, company performance improved. Kindness wasn't weakening the business. It was making it stronger. But life had one more challenge waiting. A powerful competitor launched a campaign against Langford Motors. False rumors spread online. Investors became nervous. The company's stock price began falling again. Reporters demanded answers. Board members panicked. Some wanted Elijah's engine technology sold to the highest bidder before things got worse. The pressure became overwhelming. Then something remarkable happened. Thousands of customers came forward. They shared stories online. Stories about Victoria helping communities. Stories about Elijah repairing vehicles for struggling families. Stories about workers being treated with dignity. The public had noticed. Kindness had created something stronger than marketing. Trust. And trust could not be bought. Within weeks, support poured in from across the country. Sales increased. Investors regained confidence. The competitor's campaign failed. One evening, after the crisis passed, Victoria visited Elijah's garage once again. The sun was setting. Orange light spilled across the parking lot. Inside, Mason was teaching another young apprentice how to repair an engine. Victoria smiled. The kindness is spreading. Elijah nodded. That's how it works. She looked around the shop. Years ago, she had stood in this exact place ready to destroy everything. Now she understood what made this garage special. It wasn't the revolutionary engine. It wasn't the business. It wasn't even the success. It was the people. Every person who walked through those doors felt seen. Felt respected. Felt valued. And that changed lives. As they stood there, Mason approached holding an envelope. "What's this?" Elijah asked. The young man grinned. "A college acceptance letter." Elijah opened it. His eyes filled with tears. Mason had earned a full engineering scholarship. For a moment, nobody spoke. Then Elijah pulled him into a hug. "I'm proud of you." The words meant everything. Years later, Mason would become one of the nation's leading engineers. Whenever reporters asked about his success, he always gave the same answer. "A mechanic believed in me before I believed in myself." And that belief changed his future. The old garage still stands today. People still bring their cars there. The coffee is still free. The doors are still open. And above the entrance hangs a small wooden sign with words Elijah added himself. Kindness is never wasted. Because every act of kindness creates a ripple. Sometimes that ripple reaches one person. Sometimes it reaches thousands. And sometimes it changes an entire generation. The lesson is simple. You don't need millions of dollars to change someone's life. You don't need power. You don't need fame. You only need a willing heart. A helping hand. A moment of compassion. Because the smallest act of kindness today may become the greatest blessing in someone's tomorrow. And that is how ordinary people create extraordinary miracles.